Okay, appreciate everybody for dropping by. Um, so, Vladimir sent out some links to this first conference and first and second conference. I don't seem to have a. What am I doing wrong here? Okay, I'm back on track here. There's just too many windows open on my computer. So did anybody take a look at any of those links that I sent out?
I had a quick look, but you'd really need hours to go through it all. I had a quick look at the summaries.
Yeah, I found out some things that I didn't that I didn't realize, and I'll talk a little bit about that. There was more out there than I thought originally. When I first started looking for, when I went through the first conference paper, which was at the American Institute of Physics, and I started looking for some of the papers. I couldn't find them, but apparently they're at the American Institute of Physics, supposedly, but they're paywalled, so you have to be a member or pay and this, that, and the other thing, and that kind of was a problem. And I did manage to find some of the information, but then I discovered the website, the Alternative Cosmology website, which I didn't know was still in existence, which I thought was kind of interesting. Did you know about this website, Vladimir? What they call
the beginning of my activity was one conference, another one. I sent my letters, some articles to all of the members of these conferences. And what we do like, it's not what is inside of it, how it was arranged, programs, this and that, it's like, we can use the approach to these conferences.
Well, my question is, did you know about this website, A Cosmology website? Did you know about that? I was curious. Did you know about that website?
Wikipedia, there is it's a very big article about alternative cosmologists on Wikipedia.
Right. Well, what
you're talking about, I suppose I didn't see it because I left these conferences 15 years ago. I didn't touch them after that.
Okay. All right. Well, the reason I asked was I was really kind of surprised. I'm surprised that you mentioned it on Wikipedia. I was really surprised that I hadn't run across this website previously. I mean, I've been looking at this stuff for a couple of months, when I went to Wikipedia and I looked at these articles on Wikipedia, they never referenced this website in any of the articles that I mentioned that I looked at on Wikipedia. It's like this website didn't exist, and then suddenly, I wasn't even looking for it. It just suddenly came up in a search on Google, which is surprising because they usually suppress stuff on Google. And so I was surprised when I ran across it. And I noticed that it's still active. There are some recent articles on there that have, that are not old. It's still apparently an active website. I looked at their message board. Apparently they have a discussion forum. I didn't know that discussion forum existed. So that was a surprise to me. And okay, well, anyway, I wanted to ask about that, if anybody had known about that. So I think that's kind of interesting. If people are interested in finding out more, they can go over there.
Please send me this link. I would like to take a look at it because I didn't see for a long time, even Wikipedia. Please let me see what is fresh ideas about alternative cosmologies.
I'm pretty sure that I sent the link to it in the list that I sent with the announcement of the meeting. I think there were 5.
Yeah, okay, I will check it. I did not, because as for conferences, I know them very well.
Well, yes.
I didn't realize that you, Vladimir, had actually attended these previous 2 conferences.
Did not. I learned after that. I started to think about for 10 years from 2000 to 2012. And then only my paper I uploaded on Vixra in 2013. You see, that's why now. For 10 plus years I thought about, because my first paper was 104 pages. I done already the common picture already, not about some effects, some phenomena, no, all of them. And all my predictions I refer right now, I put in this paper 2013 about temperature, about gravitational constant, Hubble constant, and all this stuff. And it took me only 10 years to prepare this article.
But the people who organized these conferences in the past, are they planning, do you know, to organize a 3rd conference?
I think that was Hilton. He was one of the main guys who arranged it. Unfortunately, a couple years ago, he passed away.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes. I was in touch with them, believe me. With Eric Lerner, with Hilton, with main guys of this conference, I was in touch with them, of course. That's why I know about these conferences. And people who arranged it.
Tom Van Flanderen, is that correct? Is that what you said?
I noticed Van Flanderen gave a paper, but he died subsequently as well.
Yes, I wanted to mention that. I'll talk about that a little. I'll talk about Van Flanderen a little bit. I didn't realize that these conferences. I didn't know anything about them. I ran into his website probably around the year 2000, and I did have some correspondence with him, but mainly regarding special relativity. If you go to his meta research website, which I'm going to talk about, he has a bunch of stuff there on relativity, and I basically read a lot of his stuff, but I didn't pay that much attention to the cosmology stuff. I looked it over, but I didn't really go into much detail. So, and I had a couple of exchanges with him back before he died, and which is kind of unfortunate, actually. I never got to meet him, although he lived not that far away from me. Okay, I said that. All right. So what I did was, is this up here now? Do you see the summary of First Crisis in Cosmology Conference?
Yeah.
I just thought I'd take a look at it and see what it was. We'd talk a little bit about it. I was more interested in stuff that I understood. The second one was a little more technical than the first one as far as the presentations were concerned. And so this is the link to what Vladimir sent out, and of course they put a letter in, and I believe it was one of the journals. I believe it was Science. I could be wrong. And announced that they were starting this group up and asking for people to sign a letter, open letter, protesting Big Bang stranglehold research on funding. That apparently is the main gripe. And www.cosmology info, I think, is the website that I was talking about. A Cosmology Group maintains website discussion board. Okay, so that's the link. www.cosmology.info is their website, and it's still apparently still active. And I did not. I looked at what was on there and looked at a couple of the papers, but I didn't really go into it in a lot of detail because I was mainly interested in the conference, first cosmology conference. They have a discussion board, which I think, and apparently the discussion board is still active, but I guess they don't have a lot of people participating. Anyway, I can't comment on that. I did look to see if the discussion board was active. And this address that's down here at the bottom is the discussion board link. It's at GitHub, github.com/a cosmology group discussions. So that's the discussion board. Now, Tom Van Flandern had a discussion board on his website, and I don't really think that's very active, his discussion board at his website. Okay, then I discovered that there are two different papers or documents that discuss the first cosmology discussion, and they're not exactly the same. And the second one, the first one is at the American Institute of Physics. Okay, I'm sorry, and that's good. That's the link that Vladimir gave us. And then there's another one that this guy Hilton Radcliffe, and that's kind of interesting because he's got some photos in it of the conference participants. It's kind of interesting. See the photos, see what these people look like. I'd never really seen pictures of Solari. Franco Solari was at the first conference. I wanted to mention that because it's kind of interesting. And there's some pictures of him and the other participants. So yeah, and it's a little bit different. It's basically the same format, same kind of content, but it's written. It's not exactly identical. So it's actually the second website. The is actually a little better. It's not quite as formal, and it's kind of interesting to read. Like I said, this guy Hilton Radcliffe, who I never heard of before, apparently was one of the early participants in signing on and getting involved in this group, and he's written the two reports. And they're holding the view that the Big Bang explanation of the universe is scientifically untenable. I like this part. Patently illogical and without any solid observational support whatsoever. I'm sure the scientific community, when they read that, just really didn't like that at all. Okay, this is Tom Andrews. I don't know who Tom Andrews is, but he's got one of the first papers. The Hubble redshift of Fourier harmonic frequencies is shown to broaden the light curve. Since this broadening spreads the total luminosity over a longer time period, the apparent luminosity at the observer is decreased. This accounts quantitatively for the dimming of supernova. On the other hand, no anomalous dimming occurs for galaxies. Okay, so what? This is kind of technical, but essentially, what he's saying in this report that that there's a discrepancy between the luminosity of supernova and the luminosity of galaxies that isn't accounted for in their model. So there's something wrong with the models that they're using. And so he claims at the end down here, this effect is consistent with the non-expanding universe model the expanding model is logically falsified. So I thought this was interesting because we talked about what is the universe expanding, and he's producing some observational evidence that this is not the case, which, you would, this is part of the argument that they're presenting, which is that the evidence for the fact that the universe is expanding isn't really as convincing. There's evidence that contradicts it. So I thought that was kind of interesting because I'm interested in this idea: is the expanding universe, is the universe expanding or is it not? And what is the factual evidence? The mainstream doesn't really tell you about any contradictory evidence. Now, I talked about this guy, Mike Disney. I think I talked about him last week, if I'm not mistaken. And he gave a paper, and he ran through the exercise for the Big Bang model and arrived at a figure. So what Mike Disney did was he came to the conclusion that there are more free parameters than there are there are more free parameters in the model, more parameters in the model than there is observational data to pin down what the model says. So there's difference by a factor of 3. So there's three more parameters than can be ascertained by the observations. And so he says, therefore, that there is little statistical significance in the good fits claimed by Big Bang cosmologists, since the surfeit of free parameters can easily mold new data to fit a desired conclusion. I'm not sure whether this is convincing to you or not, but kind of an interesting disagreement, falsification. He claims to have falsified the model because there are too many free parameters, and they can always adjust these parameters to get the result that they want. Tom Van Flandern gave a talk, and here's some of the things. He said, the Big Bang has never achieved a true prediction success where the theory was placed at risk of falsification before the results were known. That's kind of an interesting claim on his part. Contradictions in predicted light element abundances observed deuterium don't tie up with observed abundances, and attempts to explain this inconsistency have failed. Okay, so I think this is really, in my opinion, the biggest observational evidence that really falsifies the Big Bang. They're not getting the abundances of the elements that are predicted by their theory. The measurements that they're making do not agree with the predictions of the theory. And the predictions that they're talking, so the whole point of the Big Bang model is that it makes the elements. The Big Bang was supposed to make all of the elements, but it didn't. It only made hydrogen and helium and lithium, and then they had to ad hoc, I've talked about this before, put in these ad hocs. You have the ad hoc that the elements are synthesized in the stars, and then you have supernova explosions, and they have to have these additional processes to predict the elements. But even their prediction of the helium abundances that are being measured don't agree with the current standard model of cosmology, at least as it existed when this presentation was made. I think that's the primary falsification evidence. And then Van Flandern says, it should be evident to objective minds that nothing about the universe interpreted with the Big Bang theory is necessarily right. Not even the most basic idea in it that the universe is expanding. So Tom Van Flandern does not like the Big Bang model. Okay, this I thought was kind of interesting. This guy Jose Almeida, and he presented a well-argued case. These are all citations from the documents from the website that Radcliffe wrote. So he presented a well-argued case for an interesting and unusual worldview, a hyperspherical universe of 4D Euclidean space, called four-dimensional optics or 4DO, rather than the standard non-Euclidean Minkowski space. And I thought, this sounds like the world universe model. Do you know anything about this, Vladimir?
Hypersphere world was invented by Riemann in 1864. This idea is not new. There are some other guys. Peter, I'm with him in a good touch, but the main problem is what kind of hypersphere and what about the matter, about the creation of matter or something like this, you know. I didn't claim that I am inventor of this hypersphere. No. As I told you, Riemann, it's only 160 years ago.
Problem with this is that I see that 4D doesn't exist. There's only a three-dimensional universe.
Okay, noted.
Okay, I'm listening to you, Harry. Let's finish your talk and then we'll discuss.
Well, my point is the reason I brought this up was because this hypersphere model sounds similar to one. That's why I brought this up. Now, I'm not saying
There are some differences. Of course, there are some differences. You know, there is no universe. There is no creation of matter and all this stuff. That's why. Yes, and there are at least a couple more guys who talked about this hypersphere world, but with totally different from mine.
Okay. All right. So this would be. Anyway, I did not know whether this had any relationship to WIM or not. That's why I brought it up here.
So much.
Then now we have Franco Solari. Now I was surprised that Franco Solari was a participant in this conference, and because I didn't think that Solari was interested in cosmology, and this was the first. You know, I can't say that I'm an expert on Solari, but Franco, the Solari has been, his theory has been discussed even before Stephen Gift started giving his presentations to the CMPS, and Stephen Gift is a big proponent of what he calls the Solari transforms, or the STs. And so I didn't, you know, in all this talk about Solari for years and years and years, I didn't know that he had any interest at all in cosmology. So this was kind of a surprise to me. And so the certainty that the universe in which we live and breathe is a construction in simple 3D Euclidean space. Rick is going to like that. Rick's like that. So Solari says that there's none of this 4D stuff. It's all just 3D Euclidean. The possibility of the Big Bang model, he says, no structure in three-dimensional space born from an explosion that occurred 10 to 20 billion years ago could resemble the universe we observe. The key to Solari's theory is absolute simultaneity. That's my add-on. So he presented an argument the Big Bang was false because it didn't have absolute simultaneity. That's my understanding of what his argument was about. But I couldn't find anything. I tried going online. I couldn't really find anything. I couldn't find this presentation that he gave. I couldn't, you know, I did searches and I couldn't find this paper that he supposedly presented. So I can't really sort of speak to his theory. But anyway, Solari opposed the Big Bang. I think that's an interesting fact. Solari is a guy, he's a well-known dissident. He's opposed to special relativity and the relativity theories that are accepted in mainstream physics. So I guess it's not a surprise that he would be objecting to the Big Bang Theory. Then Dr. Glenn Starkman, and this was kind of interesting, I thought. Dr. Starkman has discovered some unexpected, for Big Bangers, characteristics, he describes them as bizarre, in the data that have serious consequences for the Standard Model, far from having the smooth Gaussian distribution predicted by Big Bang. The microwave picture has distinct isotropies, and what's more, says Starkman, they are clearly aligned with local astrophysical structures, particularly the ecliptic of the solar system. Now, I thought this is the called the axis of evil, and I think he's talking about the axis of evil, but I don't think that when he gave this presentation that name had been attached to it yet. And we know all about this business of the anisotropies, of the cosmic microwave background. This has been well confirmed. But I'd never seen any mention of this man's name associated with any of this. So my question is, what was his relationship? And here's a quote. This suggests that the reported microwave background fluctuations on large angular scales are not in fact cosmic with important consequences. Now, I found this statement to be kind of unclear. What does he mean with important consequences? He apparently has done a study of the cosmic microwave background radiation and is not convinced that it's due to a Big Bang. That's my conclusion as to what he's talking about. Eric Lerner gave a presentation. He has a website that you can go to. I went to his website. I wasn't really particularly impressed by his website. I found it to be kind of confusing and unclear. I suspect you probably have to read his book. He's well known for this book, The Big Bang Never Happened, if I'm not mistaken. I've never read his book. I don't really know that much about him, but he apparently did give a presentation at this conference, so he's been talking about the Big Bang never happened. And I imagine the book came out before he participated in this conference, although I don't know for sure.
He's one of the leaders in the plasma universe. Go ahead.
I know all about that.
The book is 1991. It is so old, so obsolete, so many new results we have in astronomy. That's why it's all a history.
Okay, well, I'm just commenting on the fact that, the quote from him, the microwave background is nothing more than a radio fog produced by plasma filaments, which has reached a natural isotropic thermal equilibrium of just under 3K. The radiation is simply starlight that has been absorbed and re-radiated and echoes. I hate it when this comes on. Re-radiated and echoes the anisotropies of the world around us. Most of the universe is plasma, so the effect of electromagnetic force on a cosmic scale is at least comparable to gravitation. That's a lot of stuff. I think the main point he's saying is that the supposed CMB, the cosmic microwave background, isn't produced by the Big Bang, and I actually think this is kind of plausible. I find this to be somewhat convincing and plausible. Plasma cosmology assumes no origin in time for the universe and can therefore accommodate the controversy. So this is, I think, the main weakness of the Big Bang, that it has an origin in time. His theory, the plasma cosmology theory, doesn't have a Big Bang origin. Since We see evidence of evolution around us. We can assume evolution in the universe, though not at the place or the scale of the Big Bang. Lastly, plasma cosmology tries to explain as much of the universe as possible using known physics and does not invoke assistance from supernatural elements. Okay, that's a big
or ad hocs is what he's trying to say there.
Van Flandern and a lot of these guys are opposed to the Big Bang. They consider it to be supernatural and not physics. The Big Bang isn't physics. That's kind of one of the main points I think that they're trying to make. Then we're coming up on we got not that much time. Papers presented at the conference by some of the world's leading scientists showed beyond doubt that the weight of scientific evidence clearly indicates that the dominant theory on the origin and destiny of the universe is deeply flawed. That's a lot of words. This is Radcliffe Hilton's summary. The implications of this damning consensus are serious indeed and will in time fundamentally affect not only the direction of many scientific disciplines, but also threaten to change the very way that we do science. I thought that was kind of nice summary. I got a slide out of place here, I think. This speaker, Ricardo de Scarpa, ESO, he was advocating for the Mond theory. That's the modified Newtonian dynamics theory. And he supposedly argues, in practice, there is no need to invoke dark matter. Dark matter is the craziest idea we've ever had in astronomy. It can appear when you need it the way you like. It is a fairy tale of astronomy. I sort of added that in at the end because I like the idea. It's a fairy tale of astronomy. Dark matter is.
So is dark energy.
Well, these guys are critical of what mainstream is doing. That's kind of the whole point of the conference, I think.
Yeah, I recognize quite a few of the names in this discussion.
Right. Now, kind of my point was I didn't really, I found it kind of confusing when I looked over the list of papers, and then I tried to go trying to find out what they were talking about in a little more detail. The summary report that Radcliffe gives is very brief and doesn't really tell you that much. And then my abbreviation, I've abbreviated the abbreviation. So I've just given a kind of taste of some of the things that these people talked about. I think that if anybody here is interested in any of these ideas or wants to know more, I certainly would like to know more about what Franco Solari said. Couldn't find it. There's some of the things that some of the other speakers said I thought were kind of interesting and maybe worthy of talking about or looking into a little further, but I didn't. That was kind of a dead end for me until I discovered this Cosmology website, which I didn't really have much time to look at very deeply. So I think the point is there may be, if you're interested more in finding out why people object to the Big Bang cosmology, this kind of might be a good starting point.
You're right.
So we're coming up. We only got a few more minutes here. Any comments, questions, objections?
Like a very good information about the history of cosmology.
Excuse me, two people talking.
I've just got a very quick one. I don't know if you recollect, Harry, whether Lerner, was it, derived the 2.7 Kelvin equilibrium of the black body radiation. He just said it reached equilibrium there. Did he give any derivation, do you recall?
Well, like I said, I think you'd have to look at his paper.
Let me tell you, no, nobody in the world calculated this temperature except myself. I'm sorry. Okay. Nobody.
Well,
not him, not anybody.
They all claim they have.
Any model didn't calculate this number. And I calculated this number with accuracy 4 digits after the comma. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's a good thing to know. We can work on that. And I think that's I think we made that point in the summary thing that I sent out. That I helped you write. Did we make that point? I'm not sure. I think this is an issue. I think mainstream wants that whole issue to go away. They're 100% convinced that the cosmic microwave background proves the Big Bang thesis.
They're wrong. They don't know physics, basic of physics. What does it mean, black body radiation? Man, each photon have a wavelength. I don't know who invented this idea. It's horrible. It doesn't make any sense. Because black body radiation must be in touch with some matter, with plasma, with whatever, in thermal equilibrium. And that's it. There is only one way to achieve Big Bang model.
Okay,
for me, microwave background radiation, and then to prove this Big Bang model. No, it did not.
Well,
it's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely wrong.
Well, that's one of the main points that they're talking about in this first conference, that they're really trying to get to that. In the second conference that I'm going to talk about after we get this break here, that becomes a little more, how should I say it, rigorous. The talk about the microwave background radiation becomes a bit more rigorous. And it also, one of the problems I had was I didn't understand a lot of what was talked about, so I didn't really. I'm not really going to discuss it because a lot of the papers that were mentioned, I didn't understand what they were saying, and so if I didn't understand what they were talking about, I don't really include it in the discussion here today.
It's not your fault. Therefore, they cannot talk in the right language. All of them. They have some idea, crazy idea. They're trying to put you, and that's it. Simple like this.
Well,
I was very frustrated with all of them. I have to start everything from the beginning because everything was absolutely wrong.
Yeah, I can understand.
It was the beginning of my story.
I can understand it because you got a lot of disparate. I think this is why this movement. Everything from the beginning. Even expansion. I don't talk about expansion. Stretching, it's one story. Another story. In my case, there are the first initial singularity. There is some fluctuation. There is not so much energy you have inside. And now we have all the galaxies. How can I put these galaxies and to create them without expansion of this ball, what I have from the beginning, fluctuation? Guys, I never use the red. Okay, now I got audio. All right, any questions or comments on the first presentation part?
And this open letter that you referred to, do you know how widely that was sent, and to whom? Was it sent to academics and so on?
It was published in the magazine, and I did come across, if you do a search on the internet, I did come across who the signatories are, and I think that may be at a Cosmology website. I did come across the people who signed it, and there's a list. If you want to see the list, you can. But I don't remember where I came across that.
People signed it. If there is a list, I found it, and I sent to all of them my papers later. All the people, they signed it, but no response, no feedback, nothing.
Well, I think that I think it's pretty clear, and talk about this. Okay, so is this on here? Can you summary second crisis in cosmology, and this again is a report. I think there's a couple of different versions of this. I think I pointed them out I sent links to them in the meeting announcement. So there are a couple of different versions. Again, like in the case of the first conference, there were two different versions. There's two different versions of the report on this. There may be more, actually. I kind of skipped around between the two different versions and looked at two of them. Some of them, some versions give more information than the others. So anyway, it starts off in this is I think the version that appears at Academia EDU, written by Hilton Radcliffe. In the sociological milieu of scientific politics, this is real important. Dissent is kept safely in a cupboard marked token resistance. Publication of non-standard arguments and results is institutionally discouraged. Research funding a desert and access to facilities and instruments difficult. Against this background, the Alternative Cosmology Group made its second attempt to provide a forum in which reasonable dissent could be expressed and publicized in the hope that lively debate challenging the orthodoxy would once again stimulate real progress in science generally and cosmology specifically. So I think that's kind of interesting way to start off your report. Okay, so I say here I found three sources. Okay, so I misspoke earlier. There are three different sources. There's Lyndon Ashmore site, and then there's a creation.com version. So there are three different sites where you can go to, and I don't think each one of these is the same. They didn't have as many papers, so there weren't as many presenters, and they was organized into 8 panels. And reality of cosmic expansion is the universe really expanding? Origin of microwave radiation, quasi-stellar objects, large-scale structure, methods for selecting alternative cosmologies, general alternative cosmologies, Hubble relationship alternatives, and dark matter and dark energy alternatives. So these were the 8 different areas. And I found that, I'm not going to talk about all of that, because I found that some of the topic areas, like the alternative cosmologies, some were interesting. General alternative cosmologies, some of the stuff in there was kind of obscure, and I didn't really understand what they were talking about. And basically, what was provided looked to me like what was published was an excerpt from a paper. So what I think happened was that these guys submitted a proposed paper to the committee, this guy Hilton, and when he did the final report, he just took excerpts from these documents that had been sent to him And so the documents refer to references. There's no references in the report. And so I found it kind of confusing and disconnected, and I didn't really understand a lot of these reports. So I didn't really address them. I'm not really addressing them here. I'm only addressing those things that I thought were interesting, that I understood. Does that make sense to you? Now, the first topic, and I thought this was kind of interesting, this particular one, reality of cosmic expansion. I thought this one was interesting. And the light from quasars passes through hydrogen clouds, and when it does that, you get absorption lines. And so this analysis looked at these different quasars at different redshift and looked at the absorption lines. And what he found was, and this is the claim, that the absorption lines didn't get wider and wider and wider as the distance increased. And so his argument is that if the universe is expanding, these clouds should get further and further apart. But the evidence from the absorption lines that he measured didn't show that. And so his conclusion was either the universe is much older than presently accepted, which I didn't really understand his argument entirely, accepted value in order for these clouds to have achieved their present separations. So the clouds apparently are not at the right separation. The universe age is not correct. Or there must be some new physics other than inflation required for the Big Bang Theory. Now,
it's a pretty
one of the things I wanted to do as soon as I read this was I wanted to see more detail and find out more. So if you're interested in this, I thought this was kind of an interesting idea of doing these measurements of absorption lines and correlating them with how far apart the clouds were. I thought that was an interesting technique of doing it.
There must be a theory other than expansion. That's his thesis. I think you said inflation, Harry.
Well, yeah, I didn't really understand. A part of the issue that you have to have here is that I just exerted what I thought was a statement of what he was talking about. And most of what was published was so obscure that I couldn't understand what he was talking about. As the light from quasars passes through these hydrogen clouds, the atoms absorb certain frequencies of light and a black line appears. That's basically a statement of absorption line spectrum. In a static universe, we would expect to find the same average spacing across the whole range of redshifts. In an expanding universe, the clouds will become further and further apart, and so the average spacing will increase as the redshift reduces. Lower redshift, and this is my comment, lower redshift is closer to us or less distant. It's what I found that part kind of confusing by what he meant as redshift reduces. Either the universe is much older than the presently accepted value in order for these clouds to have achieved their present separations, or there must be some new physics other than inflation required by the Big Bang. And, kind of interesting, I thought. If quasars are at cosmic distances, and this is the Lyman alpha line, do represent hydrogen cloud separation, then why in an expanding universe are they locally and on average equally spaced over a range of redshifts? So he's saying that we find the clouds to be equally spaced, but if the universe is expanding, as we look further out, they should get wider and wider and wider apart. I think that's his point. So he claims that the expansion hypothesis is falsified. That's my translation of what he's saying.
I think the merit in that analysis that you just did, Harry, is good because it's based upon actual data, actual observations.
That's why I mentioned that.
But let me remind you, even close to our galaxy, Andromeda, moving not out but toward us. What how can they explain it? Even Andromeda, not so far away, and you have your blue shifted. It's one only example that it doesn't work. I don't like this red-blue shifted. Many times I told you, there are 8,300 at least galaxies blue shifted to us. No, how to talk about inflation, how to talk about this expansion. There is no expansion, there is no inflation, you know.
Well, what this
there is
is
only stretching, I explained to you, stretching, no expansion.
So the way I see it is basically this particular conference. This is a more technical conference, and the papers and the reports are very technical, and I didn't really understand a lot of what was being talked about. And I think the reason that the business about the hydrogen clouds was talked about first was because that was one of the few observational reports that they had to talk about, and then later it's more about different cosmological models. Now, Van Flandern again, he apparently talked about two pillars of the Big Bang failed, and observational evidence has accumulated challenging that cosmological redshift indicates universal expansion, and that the microwave background originates primordially beyond all visible structure. The widely acclaimed assertion that supernova light curves confirm the notion of expansion fails on close analysis. The basic and well-known selection effect was overlooked. Now, this is kind of a technical argument. Supposedly, the mainstream reported that they reported the discovery of time dilation in supernova light curves. And when I first saw this, I thought, what are they talking about? And so the claim, apparently, what they were doing was they said, oh, supernova light curves are expanded, okay, and they refer to that as time dilation. It's not really clear why they use the term time dilation, but what they really are trying to do is they're trying to claim that the data from supernova proves that the universe is expanding, and according to their expansion model, this means that supernova light curves need to be stretched out. I don't really understand the theory behind that, but that's the claim. Basically, at this conference, that claim was disputed. They're saying, no, this doesn't happen. Van Flandern saying, no, this effect that you claimed that you discovered didn't really happen. It's not really there. You misused the data. So they're claiming that their data is wrong. And I'm not sure this is a very effective argument to use. But if, in effect, basically what they're saying is that the claim by the mainstream to have proved the expansion of the universe using supernova light curves isn't really a valid claim, and that argument needs to be discarded. And they claim, contrary to what the mainstream is claiming, is that the actual evidence doesn't support an expanding universe, that the supernova light curves, because they're not expanded as they're supposed to be, proves that the universe isn't expanding. I really, it's a very technical argument and very difficult to understand. So that's, okay, so Van Flandern is saying, he's saying this supernova light curve evidence is false, the universe isn't expanding. Then his second, that's the first pillar, the assumption that the universe is expanding. The second pillar is microwave background radiation. And he says, by any reasonable standard, the theory is now falsified. He's talking about the WMAP data, the Wilkinson microwave data, satellite data. And again, he said, I think this goes to the anisotropy. And the way he talks about it, I found to be confusing. But essentially, I think this is the axis of evil thing again, that there are anisotropies in the microwave background radiation that are correlated with the ecliptic plane, and I think that's the axis of evil argument. So that's what he's talking about there. I found this to be interesting, the Schmidt's survey of evidence for top-down versus bottom-up evolution of structure on various scales. This is kind of a highly technical argument. The Big Bang Theory favors a bottom-up evolution, yet observational evidence suggests a top-down evolution of various structures in the visible universe. Active galactic nuclei, quasar, and supermassive black holes puzzle cosmologists who seek to understand the creation and evolution of whole galaxies and stars within galaxies. The concepts of accretion and ejection are intimately connected to whether the evolution of galaxy occurs from the bottom up or the top down. That's a big mouthful, isn't it? Okay, what he's saying there is that they really can't explain, you know, these superclusters, clusters, the way that these hierarchies of stars and galaxies, clusters of galaxies, clusters of galaxies. The argument is these structures, the way these structures occur, can't be explained by a Big Bang where the universe expands and produces a hydrogen-helium mixture of gas, and then out of this big expanded region of gas, these structures are going to arise. And the argument is these structures are inconsistent with the idea that the Big Bang creates a gas mixture of hydrogen and helium, which is mixed, relatively uniformly mixed. And so the argument is galaxies can't be created out of that. Quasi-steady state cosmology. Now, I didn't really know that much about this. Is the Hoyle-Narlikar modified theory. I find this to be very interesting. I like this idea. They give a mechanism for matter being created in the current epoch. So they claim that matter is being created in the current epoch. It wasn't all created at the Big Bang. And so this is a completely philosophical, scientific paradigm that's completely at odds with the Big Bang paradigm. Creation occurred all at once, and then physical laws took over after that. This quasi-steady state cosmology says that creation is ongoing and it's part of the physical universe that we see. And and this has the quasi-steady state cosmology is a cyclic model. Okay, that's important because that gets rid of the Big Bang singularity. They don't have to explain how the universe began. They don't have this miracle occurring. A miracle occurred and that created the universe, driven by a negative energy scalar field. This is all very technical. If you have to read Hoyle's books, and that they have the negative
energy defined.
Please don't ask that. If you're interested, I suggest you go to the sources. I have no idea what they're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, this is just what I just copied this off of what they're saying. which has its origin in a primary creation process. So they're claiming that there's a negative energy scalar field. Lots of people are talking about scalar fields and cosmology. It is shown that the creation process, which takes place in the nuclei of galaxies, this is really the important point. They're claiming that this creation field creates matter in the nuclei of galaxies, closely linked to the high energy and explosive phenomena which are commonly observed in galaxies at all redshifts. This is an observational fact. Okay? Observational fact. This occurs in the nuclei of galaxies. Okay. Observational fact. They're claiming we can explain it, Big Bang can't. Big Bang says, oh, black holes are in the centers of galaxies. Well, where do the black holes come from? Well, they got a problem because the black holes don't have time to form, okay, according to the Big Bang galaxy theory. So the Big Bang says, okay, the Big Bang occurred, then you have to have gas cloud has to condense to stars. The stars have to form galaxies, and then they have to process the gas in the stars and create heavier elements. These get expelled by supernova explosions. The supernova explosions create gas, and that then through this process of the supernova explosions creating black holes and all this stuff, the black holes suck the gas back in, become black holes, blah, blah, blah. All this takes a long time. But they found out that these quasars occur at very high redshifts. There's not enough time for them to form, so this whole theory is BS. Okay. The observational, so their argument is creation processes occur at the nuclei of galaxies. That's the whole point. That's the real important issue there. Closely linked to the high energy and explosive phenomena which are commonly observed in galaxies at all redshifts. You know, radio galaxies, all kinds of galaxies. This is a well-known observed phenomenon. Big Bang can't explain. All right.
Sure. I mean your historical review.
Okay, now we're at the summary. I kind of, you know, for sake of time, I've basically made it simple. Skipped over a lot of stuff. I skipped over a lot of the these alternative cosmologies, which I didn't really understand what they were talking about. Some of them are pretty interesting. I mentioned the QSS one because that's I think more important to understand because that's based on observational evidence. Okay, these quasars and BL Lecourte objects, radio galaxies, all this stuff, these are observational facts. That cosmology attempts to explain those observational facts. The Big Bang cosmology invokes black holes, supermassive black holes. But the problem is, where do these black holes come from? They don't. It's not a very logical theory. Okay, so the summary. This is the summary. Although earnest attempts were made to attract scientists from the mainstream, there is apparently still a stigma attached to the word alternative. So they're calling this Alternative Cosmology Conference. Apparently that didn't really, a participant noticed the greatest, I like this statement here, the greatest obstacle to progress is not ignorance, but the illusion of knowledge. This is probably, you know, in my mind, this statement encapsulates the biggest illusion in modern society and science in general. And not only in the political realm, you know, in the scientific realm, it extends into the political realm. You know, we're the smartest people on the world, so you have to believe what we say. And, and if you don't get any money to do science. The general feeling seemed to be that because of the inherent weakness of a polyassumptive foundation, invoking a surfeit of adjustable parameters, the model should be optional, not compulsory, both in research and, more importantly, in education. So basically what they're saying is you're not funding alternative research. You're basically, if you don't believe what we want you to believe, you don't get any of our money. You don't get published in any of our journals. That's not exactly anything new. Prominent investigators in many fields of physical science are becoming less confident that Big Bang Theory is indeed empirically verified to acceptable standards of science. And that's kind of the end of that. And then my question is, why no further conferences? And I don't have an answer to that. This was the last conference. Looked like they were heading in some direction. It was more technical, but no future conferences were forthcoming, so I don't know the answer to that. So that's the end of my hopefully thought-provoking discussion.
So much, it's a very historical review. But if there is no conference, let's arrange our conference. It's exactly my point, why I send you these two conferences. The people 16 years ago, they could do it. Why we cannot do this? Not the same, but much better.
Well,
my intention will to show you that there were some people, they were smart, no doubt, but we may be smarter than them. Who knows? And we can arrange better conference.
My thinking is learn from what it is that they've done and whatever their mistakes are. I don't know that they've made a mistake. It's I don't know. I think it's a lot of. I think there's a lot of interesting ideas that to be gained from looking at the conferences that they did. A lot of it is technical. I didn't really understand a lot of it.
It seems that perhaps the demise of that Hilton fellow, put the end to the conference.
You're talking about Van Flandern.
No, the guy who wrote the summary.
I think no, he's not dead. No, he's not dead. He's
not dead. Oh, sorry, I thought you said he was.
No, Van Flandern.
Oh.
Van Flandern.
Well, because I was going to say, but there must be an organising committee, and it might be worth contacting them. But if that Hilton chap is alive, contact him. Because at the very least, if we just took it over and organised it under the same guise, they may say, well, you've stolen our, our thunder, our intellectual properties. You ought not to do that.
Well, there's I think what Vladimir was saying earlier is that Van Flandern was the spark plug behind these two conferences. And Van Flandern died, and I'm not exactly sure
Didn't
when.
die? No. Tom Flandern? No. Hilton. He died.
Okay, we're speaking
No, you're confused. Van Flandern died. Hilton is still alive.
You're sure of that?
I'm pretty sure because when I went on the internet, I looked him up, and he seemed to have I think he's at University of Texas. I know for a fact that Van Flandern died.
Yes, I believe that.
Goodness.
But I don't know.
By the way, he's one of the supporters of so-named solar sun fission model. I followed him. He was a very good guy. very smart guy. He tried to continue this rotational fission. By the way, I want to ask you the question. If somebody who, I don't know, mentioned the problem, angular momentum problem in all these two conferences and all the papers you look at, do you have any mentioning even such a problem?
Well, I would have probably have highlighted it if I'd run across it, but I can't say that I read all of the stuff in sufficient detail. A lot of it I didn't really understand, but I would suspect the answer to your question is no.
Yeah, I know that it's no, not even touched it. And what is important for now, astronomy told that all the galaxies' rotations, all of them rotate. That's why you know how to explain all these models with rotation and the orbital movement of all galaxies.
All right. Well, I do want to mention here. This is not a new problem. It's not an unknown problem. And many years ago, probably 20 years ago, I looked into this exact problem. And one of the things that I did was I looked at binary galaxies, and I tried to look at whether or not they were rotating in opposite directions as if they'd broken apart. And I was not really able to, I was not able to find any conclusive evidence that when two galaxies were in a binary pair, that there was evidence that showed they were rotating in opposite directions such that angular momentum would be preserved. So my thought was that when the two galaxies split apart, one was rotating in one direction and the other was rotating in the other direction, and angular momentum would be conserved. The reason I bring that up is because I've known about that for a long time. That's why I bring it up every time I can. It's been known for years. It's a well-known problem. It's an unresolved problem. It's a major flaw.
Maybe somebody tried to solve it. That's why I asked this question. It's a well-known problem, but nobody solved it.
Correct. That's exactly correct. Now, I did not mention this, but Virginia Trimble, you may remember I talked about her. She's the dark matter pioneer. You know, she wrote a paper a number of years ago about the angular momentum issue. And if you're interested in that, I could go get the book where she talks about it. But this is a well-known problem, and I think it's one of those things where they don't want to talk about it because it's like, they don't have a solution and they don't have an answer, and they're probably sweeping it under the rug because you don't really hear them talk about it much.
Pollution, you know this definition. Pollution for all the astronomy and cosmology. Pollution. It doesn't exist, and that's it. Don't take into account. Simple like this.
Well, I think
you talk that some people, they talk there is no dark matter and so on. Of course, they don't know John Mitchell. I talked about him, about binary systems. And even in our Milky Way, there are 12 binary systems. One star we can see, another one we cannot. And we can see them only in X-rays, up to 60 kiloelectron volts. Why? How we can talk about there is no dark matter if we have a binary systems in our Milky Way galaxy? 12 of them. How? No. Well, he was genius 188 years ago.
I think that what you're talking about here is there are different ideas about what dark matter means. And therein lies part of the issue. They've generally taken this idea of dark matter has become a catch-all. It's a catch-all for a bunch of different things that can't be explained, and so dark matter explains it. That's my view of it, and that's why it's kind of one of those things that's hard to get a hold of. You know, some people say, you know, some people want to believe in it. Yeah, it exists. Yeah, it's been proven, blah, blah, blah. Other people say, no, this is the craziest idea in science. It's not clear to me that they're talking about the same thing. It's not clear. I'm not sure that what
you
you're
have your binary
about,
systems. It's
what you were talking about, no. Binary systems, that's not what people are talking about. They're talking, when they say dark matter, they mean this WIMP particle. They mean some kind of elementary particle, WIMPs, all these other things. They don't mean dark matter that you're talking about. It's, you understand what I'm saying? It's not.
Yes, what does it mean, dark matter? This is my point. I do understand it.
I don't know what it means. They don't know. I don't think either. It's just, it's something for, it's
invisible. You cannot see it, and that's it. Simple like this. For his history, and even binary systems you cannot see with telescope, but you can see with X-rays. Simple like this. That's it. It's only our observations. We have telescopes only. We have dark matter. Of course, Poincaré was stupid about dark matter. Of course, you know, Lord Kelvin was stupid about dark matter. They are not genius physicists. Our contemporary physicists is much smarter than them. It's okay. It's okay. I can accept it.
Okay, now to go back to the, I'm not sure how much, we haven't got the 10-minute limit here come up yet. You mentioned about the cosmic microwave background radiation. We talked about that earlier. One of the papers, the guy talks about the fact that during this transition from the recombination era, okay, that there's a, in the hydrogen,
this or that or the other thing, and yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you noticed the memo from Roger that he's proposing organising a conference in Glastonbury next April. Did you see that?
I saw it.
I don't know what you thought of that.
We cannot do it. Roger can do it. We cannot our own conference on cosmology, alternative cosmology. It should be the right title of this conference. You know, it's a very important issue. How to name it? Alternative, I don't like it. I don't follow these two conferences that they had 16 years ago, the last one. No, we are different. We should show some contemporary approaches, contemporary models, contemporary observations. Right now we have GWST observations. They didn't have it. That's why we have much more observations right now and more models right now we can talk about. And to explain what we can see by astronomers.
I think he talked about the PIRT conferences, which I think are still going on. Now, the conference which I attended in 2004 in St. Petersburg in Russia was simply called Space-Time Gravitation. You know, conference 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think they're still going on. Maybe they've had 7 or more than that.
You know Russian science better than me. I left Russia or USSR in 1991. I don't know anything about Russia. It was a huge country, USSR. I left the USSR.
Well, I said privately to some of the English-speaking people there, I said I've had to come to the one of the main cities of the previous USSR to express my points, and I could do so. I couldn't do it in the West. I'd be ostracized. That was the paradox.
Forget it. For now, forget it.
Okay, so what I was saying before was one of the papers that, and I forget which one, and it's kind of difficult to understand I found it kind of difficult to understand, so I didn't really talk about it. He claims that when the hydrogen gas, there has to be a change in energy of the microwave background, okay, due to the hydrogen. There's a hydrogen ionization potential, and he claims that this isn't included in the calculations of the microwave background radiation, and that because there's this break in the ionization of hydrogen, that they're not doing the calculations of the 2.7 K degree properly. Okay. And part of the issue is that it seems to me rather remarkable that you could have a microwave background radiation produced by the Big Bang, and it would be a perfect black body as we observe it today after having passed 16, how many billion years of traveling through space. How can it still be a perfect black body radiation curve? I just...
Exactly my point. You're absolutely right. It's impossible. It's impossible. Even black body radiation must be in thermal equilibrium with some matter. Where is the matter? Because there was vacuum. What they can do about the vacuum and something? What about the creation of different elements? Let me give you some information. Deuterium, even when they started to produce these chemical reactions, or how it can be produced, they couldn't do it without dark matter. They introduced dark matter even for the generation of deuterium. The second very important point, lithium. Some guys a few years ago, they created the conditions of Big Bang model, and they tried to get lithium isotopes in this chemical reaction. And the conclusion was, no way in Big Bang model we cannot produce lithium, because they produce the same environment and they couldn't get lithium at all. That's why, all this, proves for Big Bang model it doesn't work. Even deuterium without dark matter doesn't work. You see, that's why dark matter in Big Bang model, it's a long story. It's a long story. It didn't happen now. It was long story. Even them, they cannot do it without the deuterium. They cannot do it without dark matter. Unbelievable.
Well, as I tried to make the point in the previous presentation, Big Bang is not a theory. It's a paradigm. It's a essential belief that is at the core. Basically, they've adopted this belief that's not really. It's a paradigm. It's a worldview. It's a way of viewing the background of astronomy. In other words, without this paradigm, this Big Bang idea, it's so fundamental to everything that they do, all of their ways of thinking about the universe and stars and galaxies. It's completely fundamental. If you took it away, the whole thing would become a morass of confusion. They'd have to rewrite all the textbooks. They don't want to do that. They want to continue to build upon this idea that they have. And if you say your idea is observationally refuted, they can't allow that to be accepted, because that means they'd have to rewrite all the textbooks. They'd have to redo all of their research. They'd have to re-justify the funding for all their telescopes and all of their experiment. The whole scheme is based on this thing that has to be true because they say it's true. And if you say it's not true, you're a bad guy, because that means their funding can go away. They don't want their funding to go away. They've convinced governments that everything that they say is true. And if it turns out that they're not true, then they have an egg on their face. Why did you give us all this money? The government officials are going to say, why did we give you this money if you didn't know what you're talking about? To me, it's kind of obvious.
Yes, you're right. Let me give you some comment. Many times you told today, I cannot understand them, I cannot do it, and so on and so on. Such smart guy like you cannot understand what they're talking about. I don't remember the name of the guy who told, you don't understand yourself, your own model, theory, if you cannot explain it to sanitator. But you are not. You are a physicist. You see what I mean? That's why it's not, don't blame yourself that you cannot understand. They cannot understand themselves. This is the point.
Well, what I'm referring to mainly are all these general relativity. When they start going into cosmologies and general relativity and line elements and all this sort of thing, it's kind of, it's kind of, and plus you have a lot of jargon. They've got jargon, and what is this? You have to research what they're talking about because the jargon that they're using is so unfamiliar. And
I think most of them have convinced themselves. It's a well-known human psychological phenomenon. I mean, most of them don't say, goodness me, these alternative people are right, but we better give them no credence because we lose funding and we'll have to rewrite the textbooks and so on. Maybe a minority of them would say that. Now, the others might unconsciously have some lingering doubts, but they're able to dismiss those totally into their conscious mind, and they actually believe the nonsense that they're coming out with. Because to disbelieve it would have the consequences that you mentioned a moment ago.
Well, I don't know what their motivation is. I'm just saying that it's a big hurdle to what they want is they want somebody to propose a cosmology from A to Z. So in other words, if you get rid of the Big Bang model, okay, then you have to have a theory of star formation. You have to have a theory of galaxy formation. You have to have a theory that explains all of the phenomenon, the X-ray emitting objects. And that's a big hurdle. And a lot of these cosmologies, at least that are discussed in these two conferences, they're really basically very preliminary. They're, I guess, not really that preliminary, but they don't really go into how galaxies are formed in a lot of detail. The one that comes close is the QSS, where they essentially talk about that quasars are, what quasars are, the active galaxies. That's, by the way, Halton Arp gave a presentation at the second conference, and apparently he was ill at the time, and from what I read, that he basically participated by video, like that he probably died. I don't remember when Halton Arp died, but I suspect that he wasn't in great health at the time of the second conference. And he gave a talk on quasars and redshift and that sort of thing, but there isn't even any record of what he talked about, which I thought was kind of disappointing. So it's what the alternative people have is they have observations on their side, but they don't really have a theory that fits well enough with the mainstream ideology to be accepted.
To come back to the conference, right now, our cosmology now in crisis. It's not our idea. Even famous guys like Penrose, Professor Cox from Great Britain, and some other guys I mentioned already, they are crying about crisis. It's a totally different story right now. After GWST observations, 2 years only, we have crisis in cosmology. It's much more important right now to talk about the crisis in cosmology and some other ideas how to pass all this crisis.
The same
It's
crisis
not only
popped
in
up when
cosmology. Sorry?
the same crisis popped up when Hubble was put up. They had to expand or extend the age of the universe when Hubble popped up. The same thing's going to happen with GWST. The same thing's going to happen with the next telescope that's going to go up. They're going to expand the age of the universe and its size. There's no getting around it. We have no idea of the extent of the universe and its age. I think it's unknowable. The only thing that we have in the universe is reading what elements are out there, what electromagnetic signals are coming off of the stars, and figuring out how the universe came about, or sorry, not came about, how it's structured and how it works. That's the only thing that we can, in my view, understand at this, try to understand at this point of view, at this point in time. Sorry. Go ahead.
We will never know about universe truth, forget it. But if we have something better than Big Bang model, at least we can recommend it to take a look at, and maybe to compare observations with new cosmologies. You know what I mean? You told about, in principle, philosophical issue. You know, we are not talking about that we are God and we can guess what is going on with our universe. But if at least we have some model better than it was 100 years ago and now, you know, maybe it's time to at least change one by one.
Well, the gravitational model
theory for a new one.
The gravitational model has its problems, but as Walt Thornhill states, if you enter the if you add let me finish. If you add the electric force into the model, the electric and magnetic forces that are in play on a large scale over the entire universe, then the model will be more correct and it will fall more into place, and then we can at that point start understanding the universe a lot better and ask more pertinent questions.
Let me ask you one question only.
You're proposing
I'm sorry. Okay.
The electric universe idea is proposing a new paradigm, basically. And
well, they're wanting to add the electric forces and in thinking in terms of circuitry, as the universe is a big circuit, and these Birkeland currents that are Markland convection, that pull the heavier elements to the center of the Birkeland currents and the lighter elements such as helium out to the outer portions of the Birkeland currents, but it's all moving and generating electrical current. All of these counter-rotating cylinders are creating the current that then in turn draws all the matter in the area, all the dust and electrons and particles that are free in the area, pinching them into galaxies, and then within those smaller Birkeland currents are making suns, and it's a more organic way of looking at the universe.
I'll ask you one question only. Everybody knows that magnetic field of suns change each 11 years from north to south and south to north. What is the influence of this change of magnetic field of suns on gravitation between sun and earth?
I am not a scientist.
You know, that's why you're playing with. Okay.
Well, I'm not a scientist, and I do not understand the mechanism of the solar polar shift, the magnetic shift of the sun. It's happening.
Sorry,
it's happening as we talk right now.
How you can understand? Explain me, please. If you have magnetic field change 180 degrees, what is the influence of this change on the gravitation between sun and earth? Simple like this. You don't need to be a scientist. Have your logic only. Logic.
Well, okay. Using logic, it may be that when we're inside that Birkeland current, we're Birkeland currents are pairs of twisting filaments. That central rotation that we're doing inside that Birkeland current, as it's pinched into the sun, is coming close to one side of the Birkeland current, and that causes the flip, and then it goes over to the other side of the Birkeland current, which causes the flip. That might be the mechanism, in my view.
That's not what he's asking. But anyway, that's another model that the mainstream doesn't accept. So I'm not really sure what to say about that.
Well, no, obviously they don't accept it. It's
well, the real issue is
it's the same as Halt and Arp's work, which is very valid work. It shows that quasars are physically connected to galaxies that are not shifted in the same redshift. It shows that galaxies or quasars that have been ejected along the galaxy's axis are redshifted in a quantized manner, where the further they go away from the galaxy, the less or the higher redshift they become.
okay. That's all discussed in this second Cosmology conference, which I didn't talk about because a lot of that stuff's pretty.
Well, I have a video from a friend of mine. Who's a little out there,
Right.
but
Anyway,
he has portions of the video that deal with Halt and Arp's work, and there's a lot of other cosmologists that agreed with her.
Was a keynote speaker at the conference, and I did mention that.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of there's a if you're interested in this, this is all discussed at the second conference, the redshift anomalies, and that this is unfortunately very difficult to understand, and the evidence that they're talking about is kind of technical and obscure. That's still a problem. It's not really clear that this distance redshift relation is really true. The universe, does it mean the universe is expanding or not expanding? This is still,
Well, he's written a few books on the matter. So maybe get the books and
I know all about this. The point is, mainstream doesn't accept any of this.
I know. I understand that. And we're not mainstream here, are we?
I don't know what this to.
Yeah, look, guys. Let's come back to the main point. I want to tell one more time. Say one more time. There is a reason for us. In 2 years crisis in cosmology because of GWST to start conference against this Big Bang model. Because there is no way for us to win any victory against them if it will not be some public conference with a lot of people, with famous people involved in it. And that's it, simple as it. How we can win our victory? Okay, we dissidents, we are looking at each other face, we're talking about some ideas, and that's it, simple like this, like a kitchen talk.
Well, dissidents can't agree on much of anything, which is my observation over many years. I understand what you're saying. My personal thought would be on this, find out what these people are doing at the Alternative Cosmology group. What is in that group? Is there any leadership in that group? What are they doing? They're still out there. I don't know. I know
it seems to me that it would be a group of individuals that have their own models of the cosmological world, and they're presenting their views, and or they're dissidents like us that don't believe in the Big Bang model, and that cosmology is broken quite badly.
Now we know. I think we know that.
And we know, and what are we going to do about it?
Well, I guess my point is I know that Thesis, who has been given a talk here to the CNPS is still out there. I mean, he's still active, and he gave a paper, I believe, at the second conference.
Who's that?
ATK, Thesis, the guy that.
Oh, yes.
He gave a talk. It was mainly about the Hubble constant. I don't really know that this Eric Lerner is still out there, I think. I don't.
There's a lot of videos, by the way, on
He's still
Facebook.
doing his thing on YouTube.
He's doing a lot of talks.
He's working. He has his plasma reactor in India at the moment. He's developing.
Now I do know that what's her name, Hassenfelder, has a paper on the Alternative Cosmology website. Sabine Hassenfelder, she's got a paper there. I didn't take a look at it. I'm not sure whether Unziger has a paper there or not. I did notice that there are some people who have put papers on that website, and so it's not like and these are things that have been done within the last 3 or 4 years. So there's still some activity, but my initial thought would be, Vladimir, to see if what they're doing and whether they'd be interested in doing any such conference that you're talking about.
Maybe a collaboration conference.
That would be my first thought. What do they know?
Invite them to our conference, Harry. If it will be our society, then we can invite them, because there is no leadership. Eric Lerner, the main guy right now. That's it. Nobody else.
Well,
the leadership will be defined in terms of who has the best ideas that actually work. And if there is an alternative cosmology website, well, I'd like to take a look at that myself. But what all of those like Vladimir or who have their opinions and models should be publishing there.
Vladimir is right, James. It's Eric Lerner. He's the only one that is active in the field at the moment.
Well, well-known dissident for many years, for tens of years.
If you have constructive inputs on on alternative cosmology, and there's a website, why not use it? There's your conference right there. Start conferencing. That's what the internet's all about. It's one big conference.
We'll see even you. You can put your remote on this site. Good luck to you, to your model. But that's it. End of the story. You will put it, and nobody will pay attention to it. Forget it. It should be some public, something should be. Why I do like these two conferences they passed. There was a public, there was some special guys, there was some special magazine. They published information about them and so on and so on. It was some publicity of them. They arranged good publicity. To put my papers, I put so many papers in different places, and who cares? That's exactly no.
I think you need a more positive attitude. If what you're saying and publishing has merit, eventually put that out into the internetosphere,
or the ether,
at
James.
the cosmology site, and let it sink or swim according to its merit. But this negative idea that, hey, let's be realistic. If you're putting out stuff and no one's paying any attention, maybe that stuff doesn't really have merit. Have you thought of that? maybe you ought to be reconsidering some of your ideas and looking for something that is attractive and does have merit. End of lecture.
Jim, I do like you to good luck with your model. Do your way, what you're doing right now, and maybe you will succeed. Who knows?
I'm not
my
talking
experience,
about my model. I'm talking about an attitude that's sort of negative, and I mean, if you put out publications in the journals, like for example that Vlad uses, and nobody really responds, well, the hell with them. So what? Are you trying to win a popularity contest, or are you after seeking the truth? If you're after seeking the truth, eventually new minds will recognize that you have said something that has merit, that is useful.
And you will understand why I'm negative to this one. I published in my journal 38 articles for 10 years. 80,000 people, they opened my articles for 10 years. 25,000 people, they downloaded them. I have some guys who is interested in cosmology, who is interested in my papers. I have so many letters from them, but it doesn't work at all. 10 years my fighting against Big Bang model with all the results I gave you right now on my model, and no result at all.
What result are you looking for? If people are downloading your work, Vladimir, looking at it, interacting with you to some extent, isn't that your objective? You should declare success.
Academia gave me some information about my articles. You know,
I don't understand why.
Over 1,000 people look at my papers, over different ones. There are some highly involved 400 people. The next very important point, more than 100 countries people, they saw my papers, and what is the result?
Fantastic. You've been very successful in promulgating your ideas.
But the wrong people aren't, or the right people aren't looking at your paper.
Strong.
Well, who are the right people? I mean, come on. Let's.
I wrote to right people every article. No one answered for 10 years. No one. Forget it.
The right people would be those people that are in positions of power, and we know what their views are. So they're not gonna take his model and look at it at all. They have their model figured out.
Convert the people in power.
All of them, they follow Big Bang model. They will never stop. It's a hopeless situation right now. I'm sending to them without any response. No, they don't know about me, and that's it, simple like this. I am like a pollution for them.
Well, if you're playing the game, and so many thousands of people have looked at your work, I would declare victory. I don't understand the negative attitude. What are you expecting, that a whole flock of people are going to appear at your door, outside your house, applauding you? Is that what you're looking for? What is actually your goal?
I think it's positive that Vladimir wants to organize conferences and such, though. I mean, to get the word out, so to speak. I mean, also, as Jim has mentioned many times, that's a good idea to, sort of saturate the online media that's available through the internet with alternate ideas that make more sense.
Thank you very much, Jerry, for your support.
Well, Vlad, from what you say, you've been very successful. Know why you're disappointed.
Not talking about my personal success. Who cares? I want a recognition of the model. I am behind the model. I am not the guy. I need recognition of model, and then astronomers will start thinking differently to their observation. They cannot explain this black black
You
holes, all
can't
this stuff.
control.
If they will take my model, they can explain their results.
You
I
can't
need
control
recognition.
what
I
other
don't
people
need
think.
law for me. I don't care about this.
Your objective, you know, I think you ought to just declare victory. You've gotten your model out there. If it has merit, eventually more and more people will accept it. That's the world works. That's the way the world works.
Let me ask you this, Mayor. Have you tried to get in touch with Elon Musk?
You know, I have my plan with him, with some other guys, not yet. But I doubt that he has some consultants that will accept any alternative technology.
I've actually written to Elon
You're
Musk
absolutely
twice.
right, by the way, Harry. It's my final, step to go to some business guys.
What was
I've
that?
actually written to Elon Musk twice.
You've written to Elon Musk twice.
Yeah, through email, through LinkedIn, and through I forget the other way. I'm sure he has teams of people who go through his emails and forward whatever they see as relevant. Though it would seem that someone in his position would openly associate with someone who's just a common person, so to speak. That's just my guess.
Of course, you're right. It's very difficult. He is not the expert in this business, and consultant, they're following Big Bang models. That's it. And you cannot go
he has a lot on it. I understand he has a lot on his plate, but he's really become pivotal. He's really he's really doing the space exploration bit. I mean, he's really far ahead of anybody else. And my point would be, if you could get somebody like Elon Musk to pay attention, there's a crisis in cosmology.
We can go to Bill
What are we doing about it? What are we doing about it? Okay, you know, there's all this money being spent. He's also supposedly going to be the guy in the United States that's going to go through the federal government with a big knife and chop out all the fat. Okay, there's a lot of fat there in the government to get rid of, in my opinion. You know, that's a monstrous job. I don't see how you can do that. But, you know, the problem is the funding. It's the misallocation of funding. That's what the problem is. That's what you're really complaining about, man. The problem is you've got this government bureaucracy full of people who are getting advice from people who are telling them the Big Bang Theory is the greatest theory in the world. These people who are managing the money don't know anything about science. And then they go to some guy with a reputation and he says, oh, we need a satellite to explore the universe, blah, blah, blah. Spend $5-6 billion. When they spent $6 billion, you don't think they're going to discover the Big Bang is wrong? No. That's ridiculous.
Harry, I'm sorry, because I worry about the time. Harry, with you, we have 3 pages document, very good written. Please realize your own plan. You're an author. You can do the same like myself. Please send it to Bill Gates, to maybe Elon Musk, to anybody else to proceed. Please realize this idea and your plan. You know why? Because you are true American. Don't forget my roots, Moscow. Even I'm immigrant. You know, who knows me? But you know, guys, and you are the author of this 3-page article, or I don't know how to name it.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I don't know what the story is. I see the issue is you've got to get to somebody with the money who has a purse string, somebody who can allocate money. And that's really, I think, what these people in the alternative cosmology conferences, their big complaint, I pointed that out, they're not getting any funding. Their ideas are not getting funded. They're not getting any money. The money's going to people who are
justifying why the Big Bang is correct. They send out the GWST. We're going to get cut off here anytime. They spend $6 billion. They're not going to come out and say. They're not going to conclude after they spent $6 billion that the Big Bang is wrong.
We're basically advocating a revolution, and any revolution would be a multi-pronged approach. I mean, you have a big conference, you know, of academics. You send letters to the policy people and Elon Musk and so on, but you also get the media involved, and you get debates between the Democrats and the Republicans. You have that on the television, and you have all people looking at those things and look at every word of the opposing side, and you get the people thinking and demanding, demanding more information, and you're not going to do it just by one means alone.
From what I can see, the only thing that is needed is not money. It's just us guys with our laptop computers. You can simulate and do whatever work you need. I mean, I haven't heard in this group, for example, even a single experiment that would require money to do. So all you need is your laptop. And spending big money on projects has already been shown to give no results. That's what you all been talking about. All these guys getting big funding grants and getting no results. So that's my view on that.
I would say that much of the population, if alternate ideas were expressed and they were available, if they could see them and consider them,